So given that we're all leaders, and given that we all need to take control essentially of how we show up in spaces, the next session is going to look at how we future-proof careers in technology. It's not always easy to do so, and technology is always changing. Most industries are always changing, but we're talking about tech in particular. Things are always changing. You'll wake up tomorrow and they'll be like, oh, we're restructuring and we're moving you to this team. And you're like, that is not the job I signed up for. It is now, because you still want to get paid. So how do you navigate those spaces, and how do you future-proof your career in technology? We've got some great leaders that I'm going to bring up that are going to talk you through it. Again, same format as last time. It's going to be like we're having an insight into a conversation that they are having. They've set the chairs up right, so it's looks like a convo. We love that. Thank you, team. So we're going to have Jolawn Victor. Come up, young lady. She is a member of the board of directors at Jebbit. Next up, we're going to have Feliho. Come up, Marie. She's the Director of Customer Experience at Virgin Media. Madam, I need a hug. You see, look at that. We next have Morag Ofili. Come up, Morag. She is the founder of Kiltered. And last but not least, we have Kate Philpot. Come up, Kate. She's the Senior Director of Global Sales Enablement at Getty Images. I know. Right, let me give you a mic. There's a second mic coming through. Thank you.
Well, welcome, ladies. I love that this is a fireside chat. We just have a big audience. So what an honor and a privilege to be here. My first question is for you, Kate. As someone with experience in sales enablement, what are the key skills you believe professionals need to develop and to thrive in the ever-evolving tech industry?
It's a really broad question, and actually, Morag and I were talking about this in the break. I think one of the first things that we need to do is consider broadening what we mean by tech. Because there's tech in absolutely every industry that exists right now. Yes, there are tech-specific companies, but there is tech everywhere. And if you are really interested in being in tech, you could probably do that even in the organization in which you work right now. So I think, I would challenge us all to broaden what we mean when we say that. As a hiring manager, and you'll hear, I think, over the next 25 minutes, there's a lot of overlap with the first session. But as a hiring manager, the skills that I look for actually is more about attributes. Because if you really want a tech role, I think it goes without saying that you have the technical competencies. But as a hiring manager, what I'm looking for are the attributes that you bring to the role. So your willingness to come and ask questions. Don't assume that everybody that you're talking to has all the answers. As your manager, chances are I don't. What I really want you to do is come and ask me some questions, and normally I will say, come back to me with the answers that you've been able to establish. We've heard already a lot about change, and change absolutely is a constant, as Ramat just said. With that, being able to be flexible and not see change as something which is threatening is going to be an absolute godsend to your managers, whether they're hiring or even to your existing manager. I think you've also heard a lot about courage and bravery. So that doesn't mean leaping over, burning buildings or anything like that. It just means, again, that willingness to put yourselves into places of discomfort. You probably have heard that phrase, feel the fear and do it anyway. It's that. You may be the only black person in the room. You may be fortunate in joining the other only black person in the room. But if there's two of you, great. That means the next time, hopefully, there'll be three, which, again, you've heard as a recurring theme. I think the other thing, and again, I think you just referred to it, Rashada, is unapologetic authenticity. Do not make apologies for who you are. I look back on my early career and I realize I did that a lot, because I was the only black person in the room, and I got a lot of feedback about being too loud, too aggressive, da-da-da-da-da-da. I've had it for my entire career. Oh yeah, too direct, that was another one, which is actually code for you say what you think, which in most businesses, particularly if you're a man, would be a good thing. So now I own it. have an opinion, and don't be afraid to express it. Oh yes, and then the other thing which I think is new since the pandemic is an ability to work in hybrid environment. For many of us, we're not office-based, and I fully appreciate that if you're new in your career, that makes it more challenging to build those networks. So what I would say, again, in the spirit of courage and bravery, is don't be afraid to reach out to senior leaders and request their time. Because one thing I can say is I have never yet come across a senior person who has said no. They may say not right now, but they will never say no. And don't be afraid to ask for their time and go and have a chat. It may just be, how did you get to where you are? But even by doing that, you will mark yourself out from the vast majority of people who don't bother. Trust your voice. Don't be afraid to use it. Don't assume that the people in the room in which you are speaking are aligned. And again, to that point about diversity, organizations, a lot of them say it, they don't do enough of it, but they say they want diversity. And diversity doesn't just mean some token black faces that they can go, look, we hire black people. It means they listen to what you have to say because you're bringing to the conversation a different perspective. So your voice is really important. And then finally, I would say this is really important, even now in my many years in organizations, is the ability to manage upwards. You know, don't be afraid to tell your manager what you need from them. That might be on a day-to-day, but it might more importantly be to do with your expectations of your career trajectory and how they support you. And the final thing I would say is if you don't feel that you're getting the support that you need, either from your manager or your skip line manager, you might want to go and take your skills to some organization that does. You know, don't be afraid to go and develop your career where your skills are appreciated.
I love the power of storytelling. Can you share a personal experience with us where you had to adapt to a new technology and how crucial that was to your success?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm quite old. So I was thinking about this yesterday. So I remember the days where I used to be in sales and now I train salespeople. My first sales job where, you know, we carried the bag, we had car phones. Like mobile phones that were attached to your car. Some of you will be looking at me like, wait, what? You did that, huh? That was a thing. So, you know, we've gone from writing things down to emailing, to car phones, to mobile phones, to GPS-enabled vending machines. I worked in FMCG. That was a really big thing at the time. Now we have a CRM system called Salesforce that governs. And I think most recently, the biggest innovation has been Zoom. Thank God for Zoom. I mean, I do sales training, right? So a lot of pre-pandemic, I would travel to our offices and we would run trainings in live scenarios with other people sitting in front of us. And now we do it almost entirely on Zoom. So again, it's about how you embrace the technology with a mindset. You know, you hopefully all have heard of growth mindset, right? You can either go, no, I don't want to do it, it's scary, let me stay in this place of comfort, or you can say, how does this help me to do my job more effectively? How does it help me to serve my customers? In my instance right now, that's my internal customers most effectively, and then go with it. I never thought, and genuinely, I never thought I would be making videos for our sales org, and yet here I am. I still hate the look and sound of my own voice, but I'm over it now because it just is what it is. You know, so it is just about being, as I say, open to innovation as an opportunity rather than as a barrier to progress.
Hello. So as the founder of Kiltered, what strategies have you found most effective in building inclusive tech teams?
So, as my kind of main day job, I work in law. I'm a barrister who focuses on advice for kind of startups, founders, entrepreneurs. And in addition, I provide consultancy services to tech companies in building inclusive teams. And I think starting off in spaces where there aren't many people of color, and you are sitting and listening to conversations, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about how leaders make decisions. You learn a lot about what's important to them and what's not important to them. And I think in the context of building inclusive teams, we have to get away from inclusion as an initiative. Training is important, and awareness is important, but how aware do we have to be before the action really starts? And so I think there's a bit of a repeated cycle that's happening in a lot of leadership rooms where people want the outcomes and the benefits that we know come from building inclusive teams, and they see it in their McKinsey reports, and that's what they want, but they're not willing to do the work to get there. And so for me, it's the equivalent of saying, you know, you want a six-pack, but you're only, you know, you've done one ab crunch, and then you're going, where is it? You know, it takes work, it takes consistent work, and that work really comes from changing your mindset, as Kate said, to moving into a growth mindset and moving beyond the kind of the buzzwords of D&I and looking at what it really means to build an inclusive team. And for me, it's kind of three main pillars, right? It's good management, it's good meetings, and it's good feedback. And I think those three things, if done really well, create the trust that's required to really build a team where everybody feels like they can participate and contribute and add value.
And can you provide one or two examples of how fostering a diverse workforce has impacted positively your own company or others that you're working with?
Yeah, I think when we talk about diverse workforces, I mean, you know, any business can hire a couple of black people tomorrow and say, look, we're diverse, but I think we really need to be looking at the questions that follow from that. So how are they progressing? Do they feel safe in those organizations? Do they have the same kind of opportunities? And a lot of that for me comes down to our perceptions around cultural fit. And so as we're thinking about kind of future-proofing, it's about encouraging leaders to think beyond the now and look at, well, what do I want my organization to be in the future? And I think if you take that process seriously, you'll be surprised what fits. And so, you know, if we look at many leaders who have issues with, you know, Gen Z not working hard enough, or, oh, everyone's got to be in the office, or whatever it might be, you know, we're going through a massive workplace revolution. And so either you keep up or you get lost. And in that context, I'm doing a lot of work with clients around what is that cultural fit? What is that future look for your business? What is that future strategy and innovation? And within that context, you will start to see, well, actually, damn, I need more Gen Z people because I don't know how to use my computer anymore. Or, you know, I don't know what AI is. Or, you know, I work with people who do not understand ChatGPT and are lost. And so to Rashada's point earlier about kind of everyone is a leader, you know, you have, you know, junior leaders sitting in your organization on a real wealth of knowledge that needs to be brought into the room, even if the title isn't there. Jolawn, I just wanted to ask you, as being on the board of directors of Jebbit, what advice do you have for young black professionals aspiring to secure leadership roles?
Yeah, so I'll explain first of all what it means to be on a corporate board of directors. It means I'm the boss of the CEO. So it's not just me, there's a team of people. But that's what's really exciting, is that because of the years of experience myself and other board members have accumulated, we're in a position to be able to advise and coach the executive team, including the CEO. So I'd say that there's two things that have been prominent in me obtaining a board position. The first is the years of experience in either a deep discipline where you're the expert, or in my case, I'm a bit of a generalist across many different disciplines. So I started my career in engineering, then I became a marketer in FMCG, then I was a product leader in fintech, and so my career has spanned basically 3 careers. I know I look 12, but I'm not. So over that time, that lends me the experience and the expertise, number one, to sit on a board. And the second half of that was expanding my network. I decided in 2020, during the pandemic, that when I was 50, I wanted to be 100% sit on public corporate boards. I'm on a private board, so I'm not there yet. And I knew the only way you can get on a board is by being on a board. That board network is very, very tight. And I don't want to say it's exclusive, but there are a lot of rules to get into a board that I had no idea where to start. And so the first thing that I did was reach out to the one black woman I knew who was on a public board. And I said, help. How do I become what you are? And so she shared her network with me. Just as we're here today, if you leave and you only met the person next to you, you didn't take advantage of this opportunity. If you see somebody who's in the role that you want to be in, snatch them, have a conversation, follow up with them. And so that's what I did. Her name is Merlene Santel. She's Haitian. And I said, how did you get on a board? And I just sat up under her wing. And she introduced me to her network, which introduced me to other people's networks. And that's how ultimately I obtained this board seat.
Awesome. And I think that is a really good example of kind of sponsorship and mentorship in action. And I was just wondering if you could share with us your thoughts on how to really kind of supercharge that for Black women in tech.
Yes. So this is not my idea. It belongs to a woman named Carla Harris, and she sits as a managing director at Morgan Stanley. And she has a TED Talk, so I won't do this justice. Please watch the TED Talk. But she talks about two types of currency: performance currency and relationship currency. So performance currency is the key to you nailing any job, any role, any opportunity, and it means that you do more than what's expected. If your manager gives you a budget, you come in under budget. If your manager gives you a timeline, you come in 2 days early every single time. If you're working on a productivity initiative, you save more money than any other person who's done that opportunity. And what performance currency does is that it gets you noticed. Somebody says, wow, Rashada did that earlier than I expected. Every single time I ask her to send me an update, I get it 48 hours in advance. She must be awesome. So that's the bare minimum. I know you think your job may be to do what you've been asked to do, but your job is actually to consistently exceed the expectations of what you've been asked to do. So that's number one, in attracting a sponsor and having mentors that want to be around you. And the second is relationship currency. That's frequency of touch with people who are important to you and important to your network.
And so to Marie, in your role at Virgin Media, how do you see the intersection of customer experience and technology shaping the future of the industry?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, technology for customer experience and for the industry is pivotal, but it's probably the case for any industry. It's pivotal in a number of ways. One, because it's a fierce industry, you have to be on top of your game, provide the best experience possible, and I think telco hasn't been known to be the best in that space, but you can no longer hide, and I think there's a real understanding that this needs to happen, and that technology for the sake of technology isn't going to cut it, right? So actually, that's partly what's putting us in some of the difficult situations we are in when it comes to customer experience, where you've got too much technology, too many softwares, too many tools. But it's also pivotal because at this point in time, for an industry like telco, you sort of need to move away from just being a commodity. That's a survival question, really. So everyone else is making way more money from using, the internet, essentially, the broadband. And long term, it's about finding what that change needs to be. And what technology will come in to support it, essentially. So again, tech for the sake of tech doesn't mean much to me. It's a means to an end, and I think that's where my role is, and I put a lot of effort into that, is to understanding what is that end. What are we actually trying to achieve for the customer? Why are we going with this? And we heard quite a few times today this good old trope about the angry Black women, etc. Well, actually, when I look back at my career, I didn't really hear that because I was too busy trying to fit in, and it's only when I started to find my voice actually that I started being noticed, right? And that when I'm asking the question around like, why, what's the end? What's the end game? Why are we doing that? How is that adding value here to our customers? And Quite interestingly, whether it's in the telco industry or any of the industries I've worked in. I was at Just Eat, food delivery company. Before for the last 18 years, I've been in sort of data and driving strategy to retain customers from data. Worked in advertising as well, and a lot of the times when you're asking that question, what problem are you solving for the customer, is one that people find so hard to answer. They can tell you all the reasons why we need to do that to achieve X, Y, and Z. And those are the same businesses that talk about being customer-centric. And I think, I found my passion in some ways. I've got other passions, but when it comes to work around that customer centricity and getting my voice heard, and I think that's one of the things that I would encourage all of you to do.
And could you give us an example of a specific project where you leveraged technology to improve customer experiences and maybe what lessons you drew from it?
I'm going to give you better than that, actually, because I think there's so many different examples, and many of us here in this room would have experienced that. But I would say it's been more around bringing people together around the technology or around what you're trying to achieve to make it work. Again, technology is a means to an end. What is that end, and who do you need around you to make it happen? So that's, I was mentioning Just Eat earlier. This is what's driven or helped me deliver the transformation around our global customer engagement strategy. At Just Eat, that was like getting product into a room with marketing, getting tech into the same room, and working together to deliver that end game, essentially. And I would say it's been great for the business, but it's been great for my career as well, because it's also how I got that new job I'm in today, because I've expanded my network in doing so. More people saw what I could do, and you learn, you get to know other people and what they can do as well, and they move on and they remember you. So yeah, from a career building point of view, I would thoroughly recommend that.
Thank you.
I think we got the signal to wrap it up, guys. I could talk to you forever, I'm sorry, but I'm going to pass over to Ramat.